I've lived in the same house since I was born. Everything here is familiar to me. Even our yard is perceived as an extension of my apartment. The asphalt is like the floor. The neighboring blocks of flats are like walls. Everything is so native, so safe. Never did I think of what's right below us. I mean, what are our basements like? They look like hell. Only recently did I find out about this, when people started talking about installing water meters. As a member of the House Council, I discussed this issue with the employees of the management company. It turned out that our basements are always flooded. There is knee-deep water, and installing meters makes no sense until this problem is solved. But this has always been the case. The utility workers also told me that the basements of our neighborhood are a network of chaotic corridors. They look like a maze with no clear purpose. Apparently, our houses were built on the already prepared old underground system, and they have adapted it for communicative systems. And now, it is almost impossible not to get confused in these endless corridors. However, the municipal workers were pressured by the city administration. They were tasked with removing the water from the basements and installing meters there. The glum locksmith spent time in the basement under the house from morning till night, swearing a lot. Apparently, they weren't doing very well. Nobody could figure out why there was so much water. And then, I heard a rumor that one of the locksmiths was missing. They said he'd gone down to the basement and never came back. They thought the worker got lost in the maze of the corridors. The missing man was searched for, but not found. Other workers believe that their colleague probably just slipped away from work unnoticed and was now sitting at home, drinking heavily. That locksmith sometimes went on binges, so there was nothing to be surprised about, but no one else has seen him. What if he really got lost in the underground? One day, I overheard a conversation among the utility men as they came out of the cellar for a smoke. One of the men was telling me about how he accidentally wandered deep into the corridors and could hardly find his way back. Also, he mentioned some loud splashes in the dark, as if someone was crawling around. But when he shined the flashlight in the direction of the noise, he didn't see anyone.
There was something like an alligator swimming next to me,
the locksmith said. His colleagues paid no attention to those words and advised him not to go too far, or he might get lost.
"We have to map these dungeons. It's impossible to work,"
said another worker. I wondered, why did they ignore that man's comments? Loud splashes in the dark? Something like an alligator? Isn't that interesting? Personally, the story fascinated me. You can consider me a desperate fool, but I have an adventurous spirit. As soon as I heard about the tangled labyrinths under our house, I wanted to see it all for myself, to see what they were like. And now that I'd heard about the mysterious sounds, I was drawn to go down there. Did I feel fear or danger? No, I felt a terrible impatience and thirst for adventure. Perhaps I really am a fool. Before secretly sneaking into the cellars, I prepared myself well. I bought special rubber boots and a powerful headlamp. In addition, I took some chalk to leave arrows on the walls so that I wouldn't get lost. I had my own key to the basement, so I waited for the locksmiths to finish their shift and then headed downstairs. The place was a nightmare. The corridors were no wider than 1 meter. The ceilings were low, and I had to bend over all the time to keep my forehead from crashing into a pipe. There was no water in the basements, but a murky greenish sludge. Clots of mud stuck to my feet. Absolutely identical corridors went to the right and to the left. Darkness, sour stench, drops falling on my head, confined space. There was no logic in the structure of the corridors. It was as if someone had built them on purpose to confuse the one who gets inside. But it wasn't a reason for me to turn back. I was curious to explore what I had never seen under my house, trying to make sense of the strange basements. I walked ahead, leaving white arrows at every turn. I scribbled on pipes and on dry sections of walls, so I wandered around for about an hour, thinking that sooner or later I would come to a dead end. But no, The corridors didn't end. Behind each passage, there was another one. Each corridor was split into 2 more. I had never seen anything like that before. Once again, after turning into a low passageway, I suddenly found myself in a wide corridor. There were bare concrete walls and not a single pipe. I climbed up a couple of steps, and now the water was not knee-deep, but reached my ankles, and the ceilings in that place were not as low as in the other parts of the dungeon. The place looked like a long gallery. Wondering where it led, I slowly made my way down the wide corridor, afraid I would fall or trip over something. Indeed, I almost fell into the water, stumbling over a body. It made me shudder as I pointed the beam of the flashlight at it. Right in front of me was a disfigured man. He was frozen in a sitting position with his back against the wall, his head hanging over his side and his legs dangling in the water. His face and neck were bloated and covered with a thick layer of brown slime. The slime covered his wet clothes too, but I recognized his overalls. It was the missing locksmith. There was no doubt in my mind that the man was dead. It looked like he had been decomposing here for days. Horror and disgust made me shake. I wasn't ready to see a corpse. Now I wanted to get out of the cellar as soon as possible, to tell someone that I had found the body of the missing man. But just as I moved back, someone called out to me, "Help!" I twitched, having no desire to turn around. It was him, the man I'd mistaken for a dead man, who spoke. I turned the light back to him. He coughed, spitting out a lump of slime, thick droplets falling from his chin. The disfigured man couldn't open his swollen eyes, but he was breathing and talking. "Don't go. Help me." "Wait, I'll bring help soon," I promised, and rushed back again. "No," the man wheezed. "Help me now. Help me. Don't go away." I went back to him, thinking that he wanted me to help him up. I was afraid to touch him. Was it a good idea? The man seemed to have a flap of skin sliding off his face. Damn, what happened to him? "Take the wrench," he said. "There's a wrench somewhere at my feet. Pick it up. Do you hear me?" Being stunned, I unconsciously did as he told me. As I dipped my hands into the water, I fumbled for a piece of iron. It was a blue pipe wrench. That's what he meant. "Here, take it." I tried to shove the tool into his hands for some reason. "Don't give it to me," the man yelled. "Hit me. Swing around and hit me over the head." I shuddered at those words. "I can't take it anymore. Help me. Smash my head so I die." The ugly man screamed. "Kill me." Those words made my insides freeze. "Man, you're insane," I said, dropping the tool. "I'll get you help. You just need to go to the hospital." I ran, shoveling water with my feet, while the ugly man shouted after me. "I'm already dead. The meat is coming off my bones. Don't leave me here. Stop. It'll come back for me. It made me the monster. It feeds me with itself. That's why I'm falling apart." Those few phrases stuck in my head. I still remember that squelchy voice, as if the man was choking on his own words. I didn't even try to figure out what he was saying. Obviously, it was the ravings of an unhealthy mind. The locksmith must have been insane after being in the dark for days. But still, who did this man mean by saying it? The story of one of the locksmiths came immediately to my mind. Loud splashes, something like an alligator. Who could live in flooded basements? I called for help, bringing the rescuers quickly to that wide hallway. They told me I'd done a good job with the arrows. No one asked why I'd been scampering around in the basement. The missing locksmith was loaded onto a special floating mattress and pulled upstairs. I helped the rescuers. The man was unusually heavy, probably because he was covered in layers of slime. What was this thick mass doing to his body? It was as if he'd been corroded by acid. I really hoped the man had a chance, but the next morning, the utility workers under my windows were discussing how their colleague had passed away in the hospital. They said he had literally fallen apart. His muscles had turned to bloody mush. Once in the dry room, the man's body began to rapidly lose water and sprawled out on the operating table. It was strange that he remained alive for any time in such a condition. The utility workers were outraged.
Could this water be toxic and dangerous? Could we be risking our health and lives going down there?
Terrible death, I thought. No longer was I drawn to seek adventure. I would never set foot in those labyrinths again. On Saturday, the utility workers didn't show up in our yard. I hoped that I wouldn't have to hear about basements at least this weekend, but there was another accident. A teenager was missing. A 12-year-old kid from the next doorway had gone for a walk in the morning and disappeared. By noon, his parents had already raised a fuss over the entire yard. The boy didn't answer the phone. His friends, whom he went to, didn't see him either. The boy's relatives were panicking until the evening, questioning people in the yard. They were sure that the child had been kidnapped. At first, I didn't think anything special of it. You never know where teenagers can go without telling their parents. But by the evening, I decided to join the search. The first thing I did was to check the door of the basement, and it was unlocked. Hell, workers left the basement open. The emergency services came to our house for the second time this week. I caught myself thinking that I no longer felt comfortable in my own yard. The rescuers climbed down again. This time, I didn't volunteer to help them. 20 minutes later, a pale, frightened, and cold boy was brought out of the cellar. He was alive. Although parents were happy that their son had been found, they began to scold him.
What were you doing up there?
The father yelled. The teenager was silent. He was confused. The mother joined in the questioning. Parents wanted to know why he went down in the basement.
I didn't do it myself,
The boy finally answered.
hands dragged me down there. What hands?
The mother shook her son by the shoulders.
Green ones.
The boy's lip trembled, and he stared into the void as if he could still see something horrible in front of him.
It was a monster, like a man, only made of slime.
Having said that, the boy leaned to the ground and began to vomit. I turned away so I wouldn't throw up too. The ambulance workers asked the parents to step aside. They helped the unfortunate boy get up and led him to the car. Meanwhile, the boy kept bending in fits of vomiting.
It was tearing pieces off itself and shoving them into my mouth.
The teenager said, gasping for air.
It made me eat slime.
The child's mother was sobbing loudly. She must have thought her son had lost his mind, but I didn't think so anymore. He was the second person I'd heard that from.
It feeds me with itself,
The dying locksmith shouted to me, and now this kid was talking about some creature that was tearing pieces of itself off. I was very afraid that the boy next door was going to die too, but in the intensive care unit, they pumped his stomach, and his physical condition became normal, except that the boy couldn't get over the shock. He kept saying that he had been kidnapped by the slime man. That's what he called it. However, the boy was in no hurry to be discharged home. He had to undergo a course of psychological rehabilitation. I blamed myself first and foremost for everything that had happened. A haunting thought crept into my head. What if I had shown this creature the way out by drawing arrows on the walls? What if all these ancient labyrinths had been set up just so that this monster would wander there and couldn't find a way out? I thought about this while at work and at home, imagining a nasty creature prowling the cramped corridors. Maybe it could see in the dark and follow my arrows, or maybe it was blind and sniffed the walls by the smell of chalk. I didn't want anyone else to get hurt, so I decided to go down into the underground mazes, erase my signs, and draw others to confuse the monster. The utility crew hadn't shown up yet. They were on strike, and the basement was closed. Nevertheless, as a member of the house council, I still had my own key. I put on my boots again, grabbed everything I needed, and went into the cellars. Honestly, I didn't believe in the slime man. In fact, I just felt like I had to erase the signs to absolve myself of the guilt of what had happened. It was more of a ritual for me, so I wandered the corridors, beware more of getting lost than of coming face to face with the monster. First, I followed the arrows to the wide corridor where I had discovered a man rotting alive for a few days there. and then I began to walk backward, erasing the marks behind me. Occasionally, I strayed out of the way, peering into other corridors and leaving false arrows there. I wasn't too far from the exit when the first time I heard a splash behind me, as if something big had come up out of the water. I thought my heart froze and dropped like a stone into my stomach. Another splash was heard much closer. I could literally hear my inner voice, and it was screaming only one word: run. Feeling something fast approaching my back, I went tumbling down the corridor. The flashlight beam flickered back and forth as I ran, shoveling water with my boots. I ran as fast as I could, turning at random. Something was following me. I looked back once, and a split second was enough to see it. The creature looked like a drowned man, skinny, slimy body, elongated head, no eyes, and no nose, just a round, squelching mouth. The slime man. There was no other way to describe it. The creature was covered in a trembling greenish-brown mass, like a jelly, like a corpse rotting in water. Only unlike a corpse, this creature moved very fast. It was chasing me. I looped through the corridors, trying to escape. So I did, swerving sharply into the passageway. As I hid behind a wall, the splashes rushed past me and then faded away. My heart pounded resiliently in my chest. The mouth greedily swallowed the stinking, sour air. It didn't catch me, get me in the water, or drag me off into the darkness. Thank God. Unfortunately, now I didn't know where I was. How many corridors had I crossed, running from the monster? How many turns? I was standing knee-deep in the murky water, between two walls, under an overhanging ceiling. My headlamp shone dimly and flickered from time to time. I had forgotten to charge it before leaving. What a mess. I thought I had no chance of getting out, but still, I decided to try my luck and win at random. That thing was still out there. At any second, it could appear from the water. The ugly creature will grab me and feed me slime. I'm not getting out of here. These thoughts made me shiver, but I kept going. Lucky me. I saw an arrow on the wall that wasn't completely erased, and I could have missed it and lost my way again. When I saw the door to the outside, I was no longer afraid to make noise, and, not feeling the steps under my feet, I ran to the surface. The air outside seemed sweet to me at the time. After the report from the utility company, the city administration gave up on the idea of water meters. First, it was necessary to completely replace the obsolete communications. There was no money for an overhaul in the budget, so the order was withdrawn. I felt better when the basement was locked and sealed. The neighbor's boy was checked out of the hospital, but he's not as cheerful and outgoing as he used to be. Now he's all twitchy and silent. Hopefully, he'll get better. I tried to forget what happened. It's creepy to always remember what dwells beneath our house. I used to have a habit of drinking from the tap, but now, even to brush my teeth, I pour water into a glass from a kettle. Washing in the shower, I check if any slime is dripping on me. The other day, I met an acquaintance from the neighboring house in the parking lot. We exchanged a few words, what's up, and other stuff. As we were leaving, I asked him out of curiosity where he was going, and the guy said that he was going to the gym. Why don't you go to your place anymore? I asked, referring to the fact that the gym was right on the first floor of his house. I knew he always worked out there. Why go somewhere else?
Ours has been closed for now,
the guy replied dejectedly.
Something happened in the basement. There's always some rumbling going on downstairs. Maybe some pipes burst. I don't know. The gym hasn't been open for 3 days. I don't want to go to the other end of town myself, but I have to for now.
I kept silent, shook my friend's hand, and walked home. Hopefully, something really happened to the pipes, and not this slug got in there. It's scary to think about what could happen to people who go into basements. What if it was led there by the arrows I drew at random? I got that nasty creature out from under our house, but did I do any better?